We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a load of money.
Welcome to the Money Tree Show, where we bring you high-level multifamily investors as well as industry-leading experts. We tease out the skills they've acquired, the habits, and the mindset they've developed to make them ultra-successful in the real estate space. It is our goal to give you the knowledge you need to either start your multifamily journey or expand your current portfolio. Whether you're an active investor or looking for a passive investment to supplement your income, this is the podcast for you.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Money Tree Show. I am your host, Anthony Vandermeer. My co-host, Matt Damon, he's not with us today. He's off building a new business. And I know everyone pretty much listens to the show because there's a famous person's name on the title. It's Matt Damon. So I scrubbed the real estate world to find another name similar. So we got Bill Murray as a temporary co-host. Today,
hello, guys.
Bill, how are you?
Great. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'll never get tired of the story, of the joking around with your and Matt's name.
That's it. Celebrity podcast.
That's it. So today we got Anders. Anders is a powerhouse. He's an investor. He's the founder of Brighton Capital. Prior to multifamily, he built two multi-million-dollar door-to-door sales door-to-door sales business. He does single-family, fix and flips, short-term rentals, and multifamily. Now concentrating on multifamily. He started investing in 2017 and has investments across Texas, Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina. He now lives with his wife and two amazing children in Raleigh, North Carolina. Anders, welcome to the show. How are you?
Great, guys. Thanks for having me. Matt heard who the guest was, and he said to dip out.
No, that is not true. He should be on this. He's gonna be jealous. So yeah, let's get into the story. How'd you get into real estate? It sounds like you first were, you were successful in other lines of work. How'd you first start off there and then venture into the real estate world?
Yeah, definitely. So early on, all I cared about in life really was sports. I was a big basketball fan, and really everything I did in life was to play basketball and be successful there. And I eventually made it into the college ranks and was playing on a team in Virginia, and our team was really good, and we won the national championship back in 2011. And I was lucky enough to be named MVP of the tournament. And at that point in life, all my dreams really had come true. That was everything I was working for, kind of reached the mountaintop. And I just could remember in that moment just thinking about all the early morning workouts, the hundreds of thousands of shots I'd put up in the gym, all the summer workouts while my friends were going to the gym and picking up chicks. And in that moment, it was all worth it. And I was just kind of riding this high. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was a freshman that year. And so I was thinking like, oh, well, I'm about to, set all these records at this school. We're going to be a dynasty. We're going to win the championship a bunch more times. And shortly after that, I get a call from my dad, and he tells me that they had lost a good amount of money in the stock market during the crash in 2008, and the money he'd set aside to help me with college was gone. And if I wanted to go back to this school and do all the things that I'd been imagining in my mind that I was going to do, I had to pay my own way. And the school I was going to was not cheap. It was a private school, and I had like the max athletic scholarship, but still had to come up with about $10,000 a year to pay my way through. Just the way I was raised, taking out loans and stuff weren't really even on the table or in my mind. And so I was just thinking, how am I going to make this money? So I was kind of I was riding this high, and then it came crashing down. I was like, oh no, how am I even going to stay at school? The most money I'd ever made in a summer, I think, was $4,000. So to make $10,000 just in a summer seemed almost unreachable. And I remember thinking, like, I will never let this happen again in my life. Like, I've got to figure out a way to get out of this hole that I'm in, and I got to figure out how to get back to school so I can keep winning these championships and keep being successful. And so to kind of compound things at this time, I didn't have any money really at all. I couldn't pay my last month's of rent of the semester, and I didn't have money to buy books for that semester either. So I had borrowed a book from some girls in one of my classes and told them, hey, I'll buy you guys dinner at the end of the semester to kind of pay you back for it. So I buy them dinner, and I get a notification in my email that's saying I overdrafted my bank account. So it was literally in the negative. I had less than $0 to my name, and I really had to figure out what I was going to do and how I was going to make some money. And so luckily I had the opportunity where a recruiter came into school and started talking about door-to-door sales and how I could come and sell home security systems for the summer and make $20,000 or more in the summer. And my eyes kind of lit up. It's like, no way. I mean, this is my chance. And then, so I signed up. I really had no other option because I need to make some money. And then he says, oh yeah, we're going to Detroit, Michigan for the summer. That was just named the #1 most dangerous city in the country. And we're going to hop around to these other cities too. It has 3 of the top 5 most dangerous cities in the country that year.
I mean,
So
it makes
then I'm
sense.
like,
Go to where the security cameras are, or where the security devices are needed, right?
yeah. So I hear that and I'm like, well, I guess I don't care. I have to make the money. I got to get out of this situation. So we go there, and really my back was up against the wall. I had to be successful. And long story short, I became the #1 rookie salesman that year in the company, and found a skill set that I didn't know existed. It was very out of my comfort zone. Could go into depth about how uncomfortable it was for me to actually start working in that field. But I fought my way out and was successful, and then I carried that on and stuck in that industry for years to come. So I ran with it, eventually got into the solar industry, the door-to-door as well, and then started two companies from there.
Were you
in the
still in
solar
school
industry.
while you were doing this, or was this after school at this point?
I paid my way through school, selling home security.
Right on.
And then I had 17 credits left when I went and worked in solar for the first summer. The plan was to sell for the summer and go back, and I never went back.
Yep.
It went too well. So, it was super blessed to have that opportunity, and yeah, I was lucky enough to take advantage of it, and it worked out. But my whole time as a salesman and working in the industry and running companies, it's a lot of work. I mean, it's stressful. You're especially running companies. You're dealing with a lot of high emotional people, and I mean, you're making money strictly commission, and so you're working for your money all the time. And so early on, I was trying to rack my brain, figuring out other ways where I could bring in passive income and diversify and kind of put my money to work for me. Read tons of books, listened to podcasts, went to events, and just that the one common denominator I always seemed to land on was multifamily real estate. And so that's what led me to real estate, and I dove in 2017 and kind of scaled from there.
Nice. Before we get into the real estate, because I believe Bill is you were in management, Bill, but I think you were in sales too, right?
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That's it. So me too. And so you, Anders, you say, and I think, a lot of people look at sales guys and the most gregarious guys in the room, right? You seem a little chill. Like, So you mentioned something before, how it was really tough for you in the beginning. Like Bill, he's actually pretty, you seem like a very outgoing guy. So it's probably easier for you. Like Anders, was it like in the beginning, if you could like double click on, so it sounds like you did have some hesitation and it was tough for you in the beginning. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, I'm
How'd you get past that?
I had no other choice. So, when you're stuck in a corner, you got to fight your way out. So that worked in my favor. Yeah, I grew up on the beach, Outer Banks, North Carolina. I was a beach bum. The summer before I got into sales, I was actually a beach lifeguard. So
Nice.
I was used to just chilling for the summer. And when I got out to Michigan, I had essentially no training at all. I was trained for about 2 hours, just shadowing my manager. And then after lunch, he drops me off and it's like, all right, good luck. And luckily I had recorded kind of his door pitch while I was shadowing him. And I remember sitting there, it was about 12 o'clock. He would drop me off and wouldn't pick me up till 9. So I was going to be there for 9 hours. So I was going to figure it out. And I remember standing there in this neighborhood, just thinking to myself, all right, gotta figure out what to say and gotta like work up the courage to go knock on this door. I finally just started walking up to the door, didn't know what I was going to say, trying to figure it out. And it was a complete bust. Like I couldn't get the words out. The person had no idea what I was trying to sell. And I walked away super embarrassed and kind of depressed, thinking like, God, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I should just go home. This isn't in my comfort zone at all. Not anything I thought I'd be doing. And then I thought to myself, well, you're out here for another basically 9 hours. At least you're at least going to try to figure it out. And so I sat on the sidewalk in this neighborhood and I pulled out my phone, piece of paper, and I started listening to the door pitch on repeat. Mm-hmm. And on the piece of paper, I just wrote out line by line what my manager had said. And then I sat there and I memorized it for probably 30, 45 minutes. I was sitting there in total. I'm sure people were driving by thinking like, what the heck is this kid doing in our neighborhood? Maybe we should get security because of him. I don't know. But I memorized it and I went out and sold 2 deals that day.
Dude, and you got the taste, right? I mean, preparation and like you said, back up against the wall. You can almost, I think humans, they limit themselves, right? Like, you like you said, you were comfortable hanging out at the beach and then you needed, it was either, don't go back to school or sell security systems, right? So you figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It was that day I got over that mental barrier that said, I can do this. I don't need to go home. I don't need to quit. It might not be super comfortable, but I can do this. And then every day after that, I would continue to work and practice and improve. And by the end of the summer, I was really good at it and had all the confidence I needed to keep it going. So it was very, very uncomfortable at first, but it's amazing what having a little bit of success when you work at something can kind of do for your mentality.
Yep. All right. That's awesome. So let's roll into the real estate then. So you were doing, door-to-door sales and then you built 2 companies that you were running as well, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
I worked in solar for about 2 years. And then I started my first company with a few partners, branched off from there a few years later and started my own company.
Right on. All right. Awesome. Okay. So then you move into the real estate world. How'd that start?
So I first, after listening to tons of podcasts, I first invested just as a LP or limited partner. I was running companies at the time. I didn't have a bunch of extra time to go find deals and, raise money for them or anything like that. So I just put my money in passively. And that was the best thing that I could have done. It was great. I was able to learn how the industry worked and how these deals work, kind of see behind the curtain by asking lots of questions. And then I was lucky enough to have a connection from like a mastermind group that I was part of, where I was able to do some flips and buy some smaller duplexes, fourplexes, and flip those. Held a couple long term just to kind of understand how that worked, and eventually kind of circled back where I just wanted to do large multifamily from there. Just the economies of scale were super appealing. If you have one or two people not pay rent in a 150 unit, doesn't impact the bottom line as much as it does when you have a 4 unit and 2 people don't pay rent. So that was what drove me to the large multifamily.
Yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of sales guys in multifamily, which makes sense because you get these big chunky commissions. Like I'm still in sales, right? I know Bill actually was in sales, and he exited not too long ago. Bill, you did the same thing, right? Were you just taking your commissions and buying multis as you went along, right?
Yeah, same thing. Just whatever I could, any extra cash, any extra money was just going towards properties whenever I could, whenever something looked good.
Yeah,
I mean, sales guys pay a lot in taxes too, which is always nice.
Yes,
tax benefits from real estate.
Exactly. And to your point, it's that economies of scale. Like if you buy too small, you have a heater go, you think you're doing great until it cuts into all your profits for the whole year.
Yeah, I was just talking to an investor yesterday who he had said, "Hey, what advice would you give me thinking about buying some smaller property?" He said, "Hey, I'm not telling you not to do it. I can just tell you my experience. You have a $1,500 profit from a small deal, and then 2 HVACs go out. There goes your profit for the year. Like, you better be budgeting, better know what you're doing." So yeah, it makes a much bigger impact on those smaller deals.
Yeah, smaller multi, which I got a bunch of. It's better when you still have a W-2 job, right? Because like I'm sitting here trying to figure out how many I really need in order to, get the amount that you need to walk away. And it's you're right. You need to have a lot in reserves because you can go through that cash flow pretty quick on a 10 unit as opposed to a 100 unit, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. All right, cool. All right, so keep on with the story. So you're getting into multifamily. You did a few flips. What was the progression? Because I know the audience, a lot of people are in multifamily. Some were looking to get in. Like what was really that rail for you to go from the smaller stuff to? Did you go mid-size stuff, or did you go right to larger stuff? You LP'd. Did you get right into GP positions or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started out 2017 was my first investment as an LP. And from 2017 on, I was pretty consistently putting money in as an LP. Just I loved the passive income where I didn't have to lift a finger. I got the mailbox money every month, got the tax benefits, and knew at some point we exit, refinance, I'm going to get some large chunks of money sent as well, where I don't have to do anything. That's always the best. So I was investing that way. But when I had joined this mastermind group and had a good buddy of mine tell me about how he ran a realty, did a lot of flips, kind of specialized in it, he starts going over the numbers. Like, wow, that sounds pretty sexy too. Let me try that out. And so bought 3 properties within a month's time in end of 2019, first week of 2020. 2 of them was planning to flip. I had a 4 unit that I was going to hold long term because it was in a great location. Should be just kind of a cash cow was the thought. Got them all for amazing prices, and the 2 flips went great. They were awesome. Yeah, I mean, made 50 plus on both of those, which was what I was looking for. The 4 unit was the biggest nightmare I've ever dealt with in my life. And we could talk for an hour about this deal, but long story short, I ended up paying cash for it because I got such a good deal. It was kind of a competition, and I beat out the other buyers because I was willing to pay cash. Plan was to buy it and then do a cash out refinance right after we bought it. So cash out refinance. We start that process, and closing dates first week of March 2020. And the bank pulls out. That week, we're supposed to close on Friday. Wednesday, I get an email saying we're no longer willing to do this deal. And so I'm sitting there with this deal it's a terrible looking property. We had to, renovate the whole thing. And I had no funds to do it, or from the bank. So luckily I had saved a lot of money and had been successful in sales. So I was able to fund it myself, renovations, but it's not ideal at all. So we renovate this whole property, get renters in finally, and COVID's happening. So Illinois said, oh yeah, renters don't have to pay rent. So now there's no cash flow. I've sunk all this money into this property and I'm not making anything from it. So there were so many things that happened. One of the tenants, when they first move in, their kid caught one of the units on fire. Fire department shows up, busts every brand new window we put in the place, cuts a hole in my brand new roof. Everybody has to move out. But I mean, I know, Anthony, you're part of the Jake and Gino community. They talk about buying right. And luckily I bought it for such a good price that when I sold it, we sold it for $400,000. After all the expenses and everything we dealt with, I still made a little bit of money. Not much, but a little bit, which was a good learning experience. But that was really, I tell you that to say that property was really what made me say, all right, I need bigger properties. This one was not worth any of this trouble. And so then I did a couple JV deals while I was still investing passively. We did a 13 unit, an 18 unit, and then I started buying the large properties as a GP.
Were you still working, were you still with your companies doing, your day job while the JVs?
I was, yeah. So I stopped really full-time in solar at the beginning of this year in 2023.
Yes.
And along that, I guess in the middle of it, I joined a community, the Jake and Gino community. And the reason for joining that was to meet partners or potential partners that had already done these large deals. And I was looking to kind of accelerate my education and knowledge of how to do these large deals and find partners who were finding these deals as well, because I didn't have the time to do that. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's not like that's a big, I mean, you've had a few mindset shifts, I can tell, but like, that's one of them too, where, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, if you said, hey, you should spend this amount of money on a mentorship program, I would say you're out of your mind. That's absurd, but once you get into, I'm in two now. Once you get into one and you get around these people, it's worth its weight in gold. I mean, they could charge more and it would still be worth it. Right.
I agree. Yeah. I hired a business coach, and that was the first coach I'd ever hired. This was years and years ago. I hired him, and he's the one who really helped me shift it, because I had hired this coach and he was supposed to kind of show me the ropes on business and kind of help me transition some stuff in real estate as well, because he was knowledgeable there. And I'm a huge basketball fan, obviously, and sports fan. And he gave me an analogy, because I asked him, I said, there's these other coaches out there that do this and that. And he said, look, I can help you with your mindset and your business and help you with some things in real estate. He's like, but I'm not going to teach you the nuts and bolts and the step-by-step on what to do in real estate. He's like, Steph Curry, he has a shooting coach, a health coach, a weightlifting coach. He's like, a business coach. He's got so many coaches. He's like, you don't just have one. He's like, you need multiple coaches to teach you different things in your life and business. And so that was a huge shift for me. And yeah, well worth the money, to your point, Anthony.
Yeah, heck yeah. I think the mindset part of it's huge, right? It's almost all of it. I think the human brain wants to find the nuts and bolts. Like, it wants that. For some reason, it's like, oh, but if I learn this, if I learn how to underwrite a 100-unit deal, that's going to make all the difference. So we concentrate on that, and we concentrate less on the mindset part. It's very interesting. And I know, so you mentioned, your back was against the wall earlier as far as school and having and becoming very good at sales because you had to, right? And then I almost think you bought the 4-unit and you're like, that, by the way, that's the most disastrous 4-unit story I've ever heard. So I got some bad ones.
Yeah.
That one is pretty bad. So you probably,
Yeah,
I think me and Bill, we still buy smaller stuff because we've never had one of those stories.
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly.
I only told you this much of it too.
Yeah.
It's
Jeez.
so that again, your back is kind of against the wall because it was such a painful experience. You're like, I'm not, I can't do this again. And then, you exited solar recently. I'm sure it was still paying you well. Was there a back against the wall there? You just said, you know what, I need to concentrate more on, because I always wonder, why people, what that kind of antithesis is to get out of the W-2, because you could always stretch it out or get out earlier, or get out later, just curious how that happened.
a good question. So this industry is unique, and for anybody who is familiar with the door-to-door sales industry or sales in general, know how emotional sales people can be. And I've been in it 13 years, and I've dealt with, at one point my company had 100 salesmen working for me, and just the amount of stress and just weight that I felt on a day-to-day basis while being married and having 2 kids was just a lot. And salesmen and women, I love them. They're my people. But there's also a lot of them out there that maybe don't have the greatest morals or ethics. And when those people came through my company, you try to set these standards and have these set the bar high for the people that work for you. And then to have a customer call me and say, this person said this, or one of my business partners or contractors calling and say, hey, your salesperson did this or that. It was just exhausting, kind of putting out fires. And at a certain point, because I'd made a lot of traction in real estate and I had a good amount of passive income coming in from my properties, it was just kind of my son was just born last October. And so it was just kind of a good timing to transition out, where I wasn't the one who everyone was calling with all their problems, or when they needed to get paid extra or do this or that. Like, hey, don't call me anymore.
That's it. That makes sense. Bill, did you find, because Bill actually, since he was on the podcast as well, and I know Bill's story, you were managing sales reps as well, and you left, what has been a year or something, but did you find similar?
Just about a year. Yeah. Similar with the issues you deal with. Yes. Some of them, to Anders' point, are great. Others, you get a lot of calls about. It does wear on you after a little while, and that's the thing. But it seems you learn to, deal with it and overcome, as it seems like a lot that, Anders, that you've done with the door-to-door sales is just overcoming objectives nonstop, which has put you in this spot now that you're super successful in real estate. You just don't stop. You keep going, figure out different ways to get it done. And it's, everything, it relates to sales. Everything is just, how do you solve an issue, and then how do you solve bigger issues to get yourself further? And that seems like exactly what you've been doing and how you've been able to propel yourself forward.
Yeah, I feel like the best salespeople are the best problem solvers.
Yeah, that's it.
You always get into these situations, whether you're in a sale or you run into an issue with a product or a client or whatever it may be. And the ones that can solve either the product's issue or the client's issue are the ones that are most successful. And so, yeah, I do want to say, like, again, sales people, they're my people. I love them. They're the best. But yeah, it's amazing watching the progression and some of these people's lives change as they, progress and do well in sales. But it was just the right time, kind of everything aligned with a new baby, the real estate stuff going well. Just, yeah, it was just kind of time for me to move on.
It's great.
Dude, I get that.
Oh.
I mean, I'm still in
Yep.
sales on my end for my day gig, and I mean, I'm like a lone wolf, as they call it. I can't even imagine managing, 20 of me. It would be terrible. I feel for the executives in my company, so I understand what you're saying.
That's great.
Oh yeah,
That's great. Hey, listen, those lone wolves, I tell you,
there's
better be
someone's got to
careful
be
of them.
one. That's it. All right, man. So great. So all right. So you got so you're moving on in the real estate world. You leave your W-2. What is, say, from the smaller stuff, the JV stuff, up into what you're doing now? How'd that look?
Yeah, so it was really the community. I was able to find, so many good people that were willing to answer my questions and kind of help me to understand the large multifamily world and the space. And it was lucky enough where I've always been of the mindset as a salesman, I would never tell my sales teams to do anything I haven't done or wasn't willing to do. And so when I was getting into large multi, and I knew I was going to be bringing on investors and partners who are family, friends, people that are willing to trust me and my partners with their money. I wanted to make sure that I knew exactly who I was dealing with and working with. And so I invested as a passive investor with my partners now. I invested with them first as just a limited partner. And I invested with about 8 different groups over the last 6 years, or before I really got in full time, and really watched how they operated, how conservative they were with their projections compared to what their actual results were. The communication they gave to investors. I talked to them just to get a feel for what kind of people they were. And the partners I have now checked all those boxes. And so I had a deal that just was blown away by how the underwriting was so conservative and how they kind of overperformed. And so I reached out and asked if, I could partner with them, and was impressed by them. And they said, yeah, we'd love to have you partner with us. And so that's how I got into it. And we really focus on Southeast. We're all in the Southeast, and it's been great.
Nice. And is this the Savannah deal, or is this a different one?
Yeah. So couple of my partners are from Savannah, husband and wife. The wife grew up in Savannah and met each other there at school. And so know that market like back of their hand. So we just closed the deal in Savannah, and actually just this week put another one under contract. So
Wow.
excited about it.
And this is with Ryan, right?
Yeah. Ryan's the one who introduced me to him. Yeah. So Ryan's the man.
Nice. Yeah, he's a good dude. Him and his wife were on the podcast as well. They're really good people. And I mean, he told me actually at the last Jake and Gino event that you raised a pretty large sum of cash for that deal. How did you? I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there looking to, you're in a great market. You live in a great market. I mean, Raleigh's fantastic. It's obviously very tight now, but a good market. Right. A lot of people I know are in less favorable markets, so they're looking to raise. Like, how did you, what would be your kind of your playbook, so to speak, on how to become a capital raiser and raise like you did on that last deal?
Well, that's a loaded question. There's so many different ways. I mean, I think kind of your brand and kind of gaining trust. I think everything kind of comes back to the trust factor. And I think the way I did it, my story of me investing first with them as a limited partner has been helpful to the investors that have come on with me, because I can tell them, look, I invested the exact same way you are with the same group before I partnered with them as a GP. And the deal that I was on, I mean, they under-promised and over-deliver better than anybody I've seen. This is kind of the communication, just the transparency. It was far exceeded anybody else I'd worked with. And so being able to tell that story, I think, went a long way. And then I'm getting out of my comfort zone again, of being on social media and kind of telling my story there. Just something I never thought I'd be doing, or getting on podcasts and telling my story. It's not something that just comes supernatural to me. So being willing to do that and get out of my comfort zone, I was amazed and kind of flattered by the people that did reach out and say, hey, I've kind of watched your journey for years. Seems like you've done well. Like, what are you into now? Tell me about any deals you have. And it was pretty organic, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely been working hard at trying to expand my reach and connect with lots of people. And that's, I think, what led to the success on my raises so far.
Dude, that's it. And social media does definitely help, but I think you hit the nail on the head with LPing. I feel like, just limited partnership for those that don't know, but when I first, got into real estate as well, you start looking to LP with a bunch of other groups. And when you're speaking to a capital raiser or someone who's just, it depends. There's all different parts of the GP, but when you're specifically speaking to a capital raiser, and they don't know, like a lot of them, they just jump on and they don't know that much about the group, the deal sometimes too, which is kind of crazy. But you're right. I was speaking to Ryan, and that's exactly what he said. Listen, the only way to really know us is to LP with us. And it makes perfect sense because you're already witnessing a deal. So it's like you're already in that deal. You're putting your money where your mouth is, and you're seeing from that first deal or that whatever first, second deal you've done with those guys, right? What, the money that's coming back down the pike. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. I tell everybody who I've talked to, they say, what advice would you give me in real estate, how to get started? And say, well, the way I got started was as an LP. And that's how I would recommend anybody get started, because you really can learn without all the stress of having to, do everything to get this deal moving and carrying out the business plan, where you can make sure you trust the operator and the GPs you're working with, but just ask them from the beginning. Say, hey, I really am trying to learn. I want to ask a lot of questions. I kind of want to understand how everything's working. And most GPs, if you're willing to invest them as an LP, are going to be transparent with you, or they should at least, and show you everything associated with the deal, the underwriting, the pro forma, everything that you want to see. So everyone they want to get, and once they have a little bit of understanding, they all want to be a GP. Everyone wants to be a GP. But for me, it's great. I've really loved real estate, and that's why I wanted to transition into it. Hey, my long goal, I just want to be a full-time LP. That's the dream.
Dude, tell me about
investing passively.
It is.
Don't do anything. It's amazing. But yeah, I'm pretty young now. I got a 1-year-old, so I'll go stir crazy if I'm not doing something.
No, you got time, but I think, Bill, I know me and you are in the similar situations with our 8 and listen, the 8, the 10, the 12 units, they pay great, but it is so far from mailbox money, man. You're in those trenches,
Yeah, no, I love it. To your point, Anthony, I mean, that model is great. Now you've excited me, Anders, to go and do that. Get in, see how people are running it, try a couple of different companies, LP in some deals, learn what they're doing, how they're doing it, how are they underwriting, are they conservative or super aggressive? Under promising, over delivering. What does that look like? And it just expedite your learning. And then you can really get going. To your point, you spoke with them directly after. Was like, you guys are great. I'd love to join your team. And then you have that experience, you invested with them, you sell that to raise capital, and here we are.
Yeah, it worked out. There's a lot of groups out there that you can connect with, especially when you get into these communities where they're amazing operators, amazing underwriters. They're finding these exclusive deals that no one has access to. You can't just Google and find these deals. You really have to know them. And so you're truly bringing these exclusive, amazing deals that I've been looking for my whole life. And now if you have the right operator who you can trust, you can really get behind the product. And as a salesman, that's, what I always need. You need the product that you truly believe in and are confident in. And real estate's by far the best product I've ever sold.
Yeah.
So
dude, heck yeah.
That's awesome.
I think it makes a lot of sense coming from three different, sales guys on this podcast. I mean, if you think about it, let's face it, an old salesman is not a good look, right? Like, so you have the ability as a salesperson to make between 2 and, there's some guys out there making 600 plus K a year, and that's good, but there's a ceiling, right? There's a ceiling, and say you're making 400K. It's a great living in your 20s and 30s. And then say you get up to your 50s and you're still making that, you really, there's usually a ceiling when it comes to sales, and maybe your significant other doesn't work. It starts to really peter out, and then you're stuck in that hamster wheel of having to sell that same amount every year. Like, I always tell colleagues and other salespeople, like you listen, if it's not, because some people get they think you're trying to push to real estate, but if it's not real estate, do something else. I don't know. If you're a genius at Bitcoin, do that. If somehow you figured out the stock market, I haven't, but if you figured that out, then do that, but I agree. Real estate's definitely by far the way to go, but you're right. Just for people who are so nervous to get into it because you're scared of, the toilets and the tenants and all that. You're right. Just LP. I mean, you could LP once a year for 10 years, do a 50K year, and you're pretty good. That's going to double every 5 to 7, put that back in. If you'd start that in your 20s, you'll be out of your sales gig by the time you're in your 40s without even having to do that much work, right? It's someone like us is going to do the work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's that conveyor belt just mentality, you invest in one deal a year. Yeah, as they exit 5 to 7 years, eventually you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars doing nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're getting cash flow along the way, and then the tax benefits. That is what I try to explain to all the investors. And so, to your point though, Anthony, like my solar, I made phenomenal money in the door-to-door industry, and there's so many guys that do, but for me, money was just not a motivator anymore. When I was right in college or out of college, super motivating. I mean, I'd never made any money before. Most I'd made was $4,000 in the summer, and then I'm making, hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's a pretty big multiple from where I was. But then once you get there, at least for me, I have this kind of like pride or whatever it may be, where like, all right, well, I hit this level, I got to stay there. So that means I have to perform at that level every year. Now, when you don't, it's tough to, keep that mindset of like, all right, well, I'm not failing. Like, I'm just doing worse than I did the last year. Where for me, I always was like, all right, I got to do better. I got to do better. It was like my competitive nature would kick in. And then when money's not the motivator, it's just like this status or this level you're at. It's exhausting, and your life that you've dreamed of, like, oh, once I get to this level, once I make this money, I'm going to have this amazing life. And then because you're keeping up with the Joneses, or you're trying to keep this status, you get there and you're like, well, this isn't that great. Like, I'm more stressed than I've ever been in my life, or I'm actually like super depressed or unhappy. And see so many sales guys go through that, where at the end of the day, the money isn't it.
Dude, that's it. It's funny. Like, quick story. I bought this 8 unit. It sounds like your 4 unit, but it turned out a little better. This thing was, it was my only abandoned building I ever bought. But cash flow is great right now, doing great, tons of equity. But man, this thing was a beast of a job. Right, learned a ton on it. But like right around that time, it was a few years ago. I'm dealing with this 8 unit. I already got other properties. My boss calls me. He's like, hey, did you hear? I know you heard what's going on with the commission structure. I didn't hear anything because I don't talk to that many other people because I'm just busy, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, it must be bad, I'm sure it is. And so the whole company's up in arms over the sale, over the commission structure changing. I'm like, I don't give a rat's. Like, it's all good. Like, change it, flick it, do whatever you want with it. I'll be busy over here just making cash, making more assets go. I'm still working hard, still doing my thing. But you're right. I feel like not even sales. Think about how any job out there, for the most part, especially if if only one person in the family works. I mean, if you lose that job, you could go, especially sometimes the higher level jobs are actually harder to find a new job for, right? My wife's an executive. She wouldn't be able to find a new job tomorrow. It can take months, even a year, to really replace that income. So for all, sales or any job out there to just solely live on your salary, I think it's way riskier than LPing in a deal or buying even a bad for unit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you're all the weight and the pressure. I mean, you really have to believe in yourself. I think there's a basketball player, Fred VanVleet, and he said, bet on yourself. I mean, that's what sales guys do, is you're betting on yourself every single year. Your family's betting on you that you're going to perform and be successful. And it's especially door-to-door sales, like, you have to look yourself in the mirror. There's nobody that's making you go out to work every day. No. Most guys have to get in their car, drive to a neighborhood, and start knocking on doors. And it can be challenging, to get over those barriers. But there's also, endless leads and opportunities in the sales industry, especially if you can overcome those roadblocks. Like you said, you lose your job, there's so many doors that can open to you, and you'll be all right. But you have to bet on yourself every single day, week, year.
Dude, that's it. And clearly you bet on yourself with, raising for that Georgia deal and the deals are coming up. Bill, I think we got to start betting on ourselves, man.
Dude,
we gotta, right?
Just thinking that, Anthony.
This guy's got me inspired, man. And to be honest,
I know,
right? Bill, but you had the same. Like, I had a little bit of limiting belief as well. I'm just going to stick with the smaller stuff. There's no way I can raise this big amount of cash. I don't want to ask people, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're selling ourselves short, Bill. We are.
It's scary.
Inspired us.
It's scary. I mean, when I sold my company and my income, it dries up. Like, you're not making anything. And so, it was scary to start doing real estate full time. I mean, I'd been already doing it. There was cash flow coming in, but it was making really good money. And then to have that just stop, there's no W-2 money coming in. It's all commission based on sales. And so, definitely having to bet on yourself. But once I take it back to that first summer in sales where I was sitting on the sidewalk. You figure it out. You bet on yourself, and that confidence starts to grow. From 13 years ago, it grew every single year. Every time I was successful, it just built my confidence that I knew whatever situation you get in, you're going to get out of it. You can push through it, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's great. It's just figure it out, right? That's all it is.
And betting on yourself, man. That's
bet on yourself and figure it out. Wow. Dude,
that's it. Anders, dude, thank you so much for being on the podcast, man. This has been awesome. I got a strong feeling the listeners will be inspired, because I know I am. So I appreciate you coming on. Please,
I appreciate it, guys.
Oh, you're welcome. How's the best way? I'll put it in the show notes, but what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
You can reach out to me through my website. It's www.brightoncapital.io. Just click the link to join the club, and you can join our investor club, hear about our deals, and you can reach out to me directly. I gave this out in one of my last podcasts too. Happy to share it if you want to reach out to me via text or call 252-256-0531. Happy to help with anything any of your listeners need, or give advice throughout their journey.
Awesome, man. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. That was great, Anders. I'll probably be giving you a call.
Thanks, guys.
You've inspired me to do more.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to The Money Tree Show. We hope to inspire you to achieve financial freedom. To see a sample real estate deal, head over to www.themoneytreeshow.com.